Elon Musk sat hunched over his desk, the dim light of his home office flickering in the quiet of the night. The soft hum of the fluorescent light was the only sound filling the space around him. His mind was filled with plans for SpaceX's next Mars mission. It had been a long day, filled with meetings and endless calculations, and the constant push for innovation. Yet no matter how much he tried to focus, his stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since breakfast. The late-night work had consumed him, as it often did. It was nearly midnight, and Elon realized he hadn't even thought about food. But now the gnawing hunger was impossible to ignore. He leaned back in his chair, stretching his arms and neck as the weight of the day began to hit him. A break was in order, though the pressing deadline still loomed in the back of his mind. He sighed and pulled out his phone. He decided a quick meal would be enough to get him through the rest of the night. The convenience of a local fast food restaurant would suffice for now. He placed the order, selecting a large combo meal, figuring it would fill the void. The app estimated 30 minutes for delivery. Perfect. Just enough time for him to finish up his latest set of calculations and take a break. With the order placed, Elon returned to his computer, allowing himself a brief moment to relax, but his mind refused to stay idle. The upcoming Mars mission demanded his attention, and the endless tasks swirled in his thoughts. 28 minutes passed. His phone buzzed with a delivery update. He checked the clock again. Exactly 28 minutes since placing the order. The timing was almost too perfect. Elon stood up, stretching, and made his way to the door. As he reached for the handle, the sound of rain pitter-pattering against the windows caught his attention. A storm had rolled in during the evening, and now the rhythmic pounding added a touch of stillness to the night. He opened the door, expecting a young delivery driver standing there with his food. Instead, he was greeted by the sight of a man drenched through to the bone. The figure was wearing a fast food uniform, an apron that looked completely soaked and heavy from the rain. His face was hidden beneath the wet strands of dark hair, but his weary eyes looked up at Elon, a hint of recognition flickering there. "Large combo meal for Mr. Musk," the man said, his voice almost muffled beneath the downpour, his tone tired and distant. Elon took the bag from him, his fingers brushing briefly against the delivery man's. There was something oddly familiar about the man's eyes, even though Elon couldn't quite place it at first. But as he accepted the food, his gaze fell to the man's hands. Calloused, rough. Hands that spoke of someone who worked with tools, who had built things. They were the hands of an engineer, not a fast food worker. Elon's curiosity piqued. "That's me," Elon said, taking the bag and pulling out his wallet. He began to hand over the cash when his mind clicked, and a memory surged to the surface. "Rayan?" he asked, the name escaping his lips before he could stop himself. The man froze. His eyes widened, and a flicker of recognition passed over his face. Slowly, he raised his head, meeting Elon's gaze. It took a moment for both of them to truly process the moment. The man drenched in rain, exhausted beyond belief, standing on Elon's doorstep, was none other than Rayan Patel, the brilliant engineer who had been one of SpaceX's rising stars, an architect of the propulsion systems that helped launch rockets into space. "Mr. Musk," Rayan said, his voice cracking as disbelief settled over his face. I didn't recognize you at first." His voice faltered, and for a moment, the confident figure Elon once knew seemed lost. Rayan straightened his back, though it was evident that he had little energy to spare. "Sorry about that." "No need to apologize," Elon replied, his voice softening. "But what happened, Rayan? Last I saw you, you were working on the Falcon rockets. You were designing systems that revolutionized our propulsion technology. You saved SpaceX millions of dollars with your work." Ryan's gaze shifted uncomfortably. He looked down at the soggy receipt in his hand for a moment before slowly letting out a sigh, as if the weight of it all was too much. His shoulders slumped again, as though carrying an unseen burden. "Yeah," Rayan said quietly, managing a weak smile. "That was a different life." Elon was taken aback, unsure of how to respond. The image of Rayan, a man who had once been at the forefront of cutting-edge technology, now reduced to this, delivering fast food, seemed almost surreal. Elon reached into his wallet, pulling out a $20 bill and handing it over. "Keep the change," he said quietly. feeling an unexpected pang in his chest as he watched Rayan tuck the money into a small waterproof pouch. Rayan nodded, then turned to leave, but Elon couldn't just let him go without understanding more. "Rayan, wait," Elon called after him, his voice urgent. "Are you okay? I mean, what's going on?" He stepped forward, unsure of what to make of the situation. Rayan paused at his car door. Elon's voice was different now, quieter, as if sensing the depth of the struggle that Rayan must have been going through. Rayan didn't turn around immediately. His hand rested on the door of the old sedan, and for a moment, the reins seemed to hang in the air between them. The car wasn't in the best condition. The back bumper was patched together with duct tape, and the headlights flickered, one dimmer than the other. "I need to get going," Rayan said, cutting Elon off. "I've got a few more deliveries to make tonight, and the app tracks our time. Can't afford to be late." Elon's mind raced, but before he could respond, Rayan opened the door to his car and slid inside. "You worked on the Falcon rockets, Rayan," Elon called after him, raising his voice over the rain. "You designed the cooling system that saved us millions. You were going to lead the propulsion team. How did this happen?" Rayan's hand froze on the steering wheel for a moment. A faint spark of recognition flickered in his eyes. The engineer Elon had known, the passion that had driven him to change the future of space travel. But that moment was brief. It disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. "That was a different life," Rayan said again, his voice quieter now, tinged with a deep resignation. "Good night, Mr. Musk." And with that, he shut the door and started the car, the engine rattling as he pulled away from the curb. Elon stood there, holding the fast food bag in his hands, forgotten. The rain continued to fall around him, the sound amplifying in the night air. His thoughts swirled, his mind still focused on the image of Rayan's tired eyes, his trembling hands, the way he had looked away as though he couldn't face the person he once was. Elon's hunger had faded into the background. What remained was a deep, unsettling feeling in his chest. Something wasn't right. Rayan Patel, once one of the brightest minds at SpaceX, had fallen so far, and now in his place was a man who was barely holding things together, working a job that had no bearing on his immense potential. Elon took a deep breath and walked back into his home, still holding the fast food bag. He placed it down on the counter, but the thought of eating didn't even cross his mind anymore. His mind was too preoccupied with the way Rayan's life had spiraled downward. Something had to be done. As Elon sat back down at his desk, he found himself staring at the screen in front of him, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Tomorrow, he decided, tomorrow he would do something about it. He had seen enough. The world had no right to waste someone like Rayan Patel. 3 years ago, Rayan Patel had been a rising star at SpaceX, his name frequently mentioned in the same breath as some of the company's most innovative engineers. His work on propulsion systems had been groundbreaking, particularly the cooling system he had redesigned for the Falcon rockets, which saved SpaceX millions in fuel costs. Elon Musk had personally praised Rayan's contributions and had been considering him for a leadership role. He had a promising future ahead of him. At the time, Rayan had been full of ambition and excitement, working long hours to perfect his designs, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. His office was a mess of rocket models, engineering journals, and technical drawings. Every morning he walked into work with the kind of energy and purpose that only those working on something bigger than themselves can have. SpaceX was not just a job for Rayan, it was a calling. The idea of creating a sustainable future for humanity, of making space travel a reality, consumed him. He was proud of the work he did and the impact it was having on the world. But all of that changed the day the phone rang. It was a call from Priya, his wife. The baby was coming early. There was something wrong. The doctors were concerned. Rayan rushed to the hospital, but nothing could prepare him for what he found. His daughter, Leela, was born 2 months premature. The tiny girl was immediately whisked away to the neonatal intensive care unit. The doctors delivered the news that would change Rayan and Priya's lives forever. Leela had a rare heart condition. It was a defect that would require multiple surgeries just to give her a chance at survival. The next few weeks were a blur of hospital visits, sleepless nights, and growing worry. The nursery they had prepared for Leela, with soft yellow walls and a mobile with little rockets hanging from the ceiling, remained unused. Instead, Rayan and Priya spent every waking moment in the hospital, watching as their daughter fought for every breath. When Leela finally came home, the reality of the situation hit hard. The tiny girl was fragile, her heart still weak, and she needed constant care. Rayan and Priya had to adjust to their new normal, a life that no longer revolved around work or career aspirations, but instead focused on caring for their sick child. For Rayan, balancing his demanding job at SpaceX with the intense medical needs of Leela became increasingly difficult. He found himself missing more and more days at work, rushing to the hospital in the middle of critical meetings or late-night project reviews. His concentration at work started to falter, and his colleagues began to notice. The innovative, brilliant engineer who had once solved seemingly impossible problems was now struggling to keep up with his responsibilities. Rayan tried to push through it. He worked late into the night, designing rocket systems while keeping one eye on the clock, waiting for the next call from Priya. The hospital bills were mounting despite their insurance, and every decision they made seemed to revolve around Leela's health. There was no time for anything else. Eventually, Rayan had to ask for reduced hours, knowing that his daughter's condition required more attention than he could give her while working a full schedule. He walked into his supervisor's office, a mix of anxiety and guilt weighing him down. "I need to ask for reduced hours," he explained. "Leela, she's getting worse. She needs more care." His supervisor, a man who had worked at SpaceX since the beginning, didn't seem to understand. "We're on deadline for the Mars project, Rayan," he said, cutting him off. "Everyone needs to pull their weight." Rayan pushed back, his voice trembling. "I'm trying, but I can't be in two places at once. She needs me, and I need to be there." His supervisor's expression didn't soften. "We need engineers who can be here when it counts," he said curtly. "Maybe you need to consider your priorities." The words stung, but they were also a wake-up call. Rayan knew then that his career at SpaceX could no longer come first. Leela's health was the priority, and that meant he had to step away. With a heavy heart, he made the decision to resign from SpaceX. The exit interview was short, perfunctory. The company didn't ask too many questions. "Personal reasons," Rayan had written on the form. No one at SpaceX knew just how badly things had unraveled for him. They didn't understand the nights spent in hospitals or the tears that fell in private, away from the office. Rayan promised Priya he would find another engineering job. "This is just temporary," he had told her, his voice cracking with the weight of the promise. But as time went on, finding that temporary solution proved to be far more difficult than he could have imagined. He sent out resume after resume, looking for any company that might offer the flexibility he needed. Remote work, part-time hours, or a position with fewer travel requirements. Nothing was available. He couldn't find a job that would let him balance his daughter's medical needs with the kind of work he had done before. Every interview he landed ended in disappointment when he explained the situation. One hiring manager had outright told him, "We need someone who can be on call for emergencies." It was a cruel irony. Rayan had dedicated his entire life to engineering, to pushing the boundaries of what was possible, and yet he couldn't find a job that would allow him to take care of his own child. He was overqualified for entry-level positions, but underqualified for the high-stakes engineering roles that demanded full-time commitment and travel. So with no other options, Rayan took the only job that would allow him to stay close to home: a fast food worker. The hours were long and the work was grueling, but it paid the bills and allowed him to be home when Leela needed him. The physical toll of standing on his feet all day, dealing with customers and rushing to fill orders was exhausting, but it was the price he had to pay. And every night, when he finally came home, he collapsed into bed, knowing he was giving everything to his daughter, even though he had nothing left to give. Rayan tried to keep up with his engineering skills in whatever free time he could find. During breaks, he would sketch out designs for new propulsion systems or read technical journals, hoping to keep his mind sharp. When Leela took a nap, he would sneak in sometime on his old laptop, working on ideas he'd once been passionate about. But it was never enough. Every time he looked at the designs, the excitement was tempered by the knowledge that he could no longer pursue his dreams, not with the weight of his daughter's illness hanging over him. Despite it all, Rayan never regretted his decision to put his family first. But the pain of watching his once promising career slip away was always there, lurking in the background. The night after Rayan's unexpected visit, Elon Musk sat in his home office, staring at his computer screen. The blueprints for the Mars mission were still open, and his mind wandered back to the meeting he had just had with Rayan. The fast food bag was still sitting on the table beside him, untouched. The hunger he had felt the previous night seemed irrelevant now, overshadowed by something else entirely. Something deeper, something troubling. As he sat there, Elon replayed the brief conversation in his head. Rayan Patel, a brilliant engineer who had once been at the top of his game, now working late nights in a fast food job. Elon had known Rayan well, had watched him rise through the ranks at SpaceX, and admired his intellect, his creativity, his dedication. The young man had been a key player in the propulsion systems for the Falcon rockets, a problem solver who was driven to push the boundaries of space exploration. But now Rayan was struggling to support his family while his incredible potential was being wasted. Elon had been deeply struck by the fact that Rayan's situation wasn't an isolated one. There were countless other brilliant minds in the tech world, in science and engineering, who were forced to step away from their careers for similar reasons. The pressure of family responsibilities, especially when it involved caring for a loved one with a serious illness, was an immense burden. And yet society's rigid work structures seemed to demand that these brilliant minds either sacrifice their careers or their families. It was a cruel choice, and one that often left them with no good options. As Elon thought about it, he realized just how deeply ingrained the traditional work structure was in his own companies. Employees were expected to work long hours, often at the expense of their personal lives. Travel was constant, deadlines were tight, and flexibility was limited. The best and the brightest were pushed to their limits. And for what? To produce results, yes, but also to fit into a system that didn't allow for life's complexities. It was a system that assumed that the most valuable thing a person could give was their time, their physical presence. But in the case of people like Rayan, this system had failed them. Elon thought back to his own experiences, how he had been nearly bankrupt on several occasions, how he had struggled with the ridicule of others when his ideas seemed absurd. He had survived because he had resources and the flexibility to weather those storms. But what about the people who didn't have that luxury? What about the people like Rayan, who were brilliant but had no choice but to give up their careers to care for their families? What about the ones who didn't have the resources to adapt, to change the way they worked? They were being left behind, and that was something Elon couldn't ignore. Elon stood up and walked over to the window, gazing out at the rain. The storm had passed, and the sky had cleared. But inside his mind, there was still a storm brewing, a storm of ideas, of possibilities. He realized that the encounter with Rayan had opened his eyes to something that he hadn't fully considered before. The need for a new way of thinking about work, a way that didn't force people to choose between their careers and their families, a way to accommodate life's inevitable challenges without sacrificing human potential. His thoughts turned back to Rayan. Elon couldn't shake the image of the tired engineer standing on his doorstep, handing him that fast food bag, his eyes full of exhaustion and resignation. That image haunted him, and the more he thought about it, the more determined he became. He knew he had to find a way to help Rayan. But more than that, he had to find a way to help the countless other brilliant minds who were out there, sidelined by the demands of life. Elon's first step was simple. He needed to learn more. He needed to understand just how widespread this issue was. How many brilliant engineers, scientists, and innovators had been forced out of the workforce because of family responsibilities. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Hey, I need you to pull up a report for me," Elon said. "Get me a list of all the employees who have resigned from SpaceX in the past 5 years, citing personal or family reasons. I want to know how many of them were in key technical roles. And I want to know what kind of policies we have in place for flexible work arrangements for family caregiving." He paused for a moment, thinking. "I also want you to dig deeper. See if there are any other major companies in the tech world who have similar data. Let's see if this is a broader issue." As soon as the call ended, Elon sat back down at his desk. The storm inside his mind had intensified, and he began to draft ideas for a new program. A program that would allow talented individuals like Rayan to return to the workforce without the impossible choice between family and career. It would be a flexible work program designed to allow employees to work remotely adjust their hours to fit their personal lives, and focus on results rather than time spent in the office. The more Elon thought about it, the more this idea seemed to make sense. Why couldn't there be a system in place that recognized the full scope of a person's life, not just their hours at the office? Why couldn't there be a way to make use of people's brilliance, even if they had other priorities, like caring for a sick child or aging parents? The vision began to take shape in his mind. This wasn't just about helping Rayan. It was about fundamentally changing the way work was structured in the tech world, in all industries. It was about recognizing that talent, creativity, and innovation didn't just come from someone's presence in an office. It came from their minds, their ideas, and their ability to solve complex problems. If SpaceX and Tesla were to continue their missions to change the world, they needed to find a way to harness all of that talent, even if it didn't fit into the traditional 9-to-5 model. Elon made a decision. Tomorrow he would reach out to Rayan. He would offer him a chance to come back to SpaceX, but under a different arrangement, a flexible one that would allow him to work on the groundbreaking projects he was capable of while also being there for his daughter. Elon would offer him the opportunity to continue changing the world without sacrificing his family. And more than that, Elon knew this wouldn't be the last time he would do this. This idea, this new way of working, had the potential to change everything. And it all started with Rayan. Elon sat back in his chair and smiled to himself. He knew what he had to do. The future of work was about to be rewritten. The next day, Elon woke up early, a sense of urgency pressing on him. He had barely slept, his mind constantly working through the idea that had been forming since his encounter with Rayan the night before. He knew that offering Rayan a second chance was the right thing to do. But it wasn't just about him. It was about creating a new way of working, a way that could accommodate life's complexities without sacrificing talent. A new kind of flexibility that would allow employees like Rayan to thrive without having to choose between their career and their family. Elon picked up his phone and dialed Rayan's number. He wasn't sure what he would say exactly, but he knew the time to act was now. As the phone rang, Elon glanced out of the window. The sky was clear, but the weight of the conversation he was about to have still hung in the air. "Hello?" came the voice on the other end. It was Rayan, sounding surprised but polite. "Elon?" Rayan asked, a hint of confusion in his voice. "Is everything okay?" "I've been thinking about our conversation last night," Elon said, cutting straight to the point. "And I want to offer you something, a real opportunity to come back to SpaceX, but under a new program I'm developing. It's a flexible work program designed to accommodate people like you, people who have to balance family responsibilities with their professional careers. You won't have to choose between the two anymore." Rayan was silent for a moment, and Elon could almost hear the wheels turning in his head. It wasn't every day that someone received such an unexpected offer, especially not someone who had fallen so far from grace. Elon knew this was going to be a difficult conversation, but it was necessary. I don't know what to say, Mr. Musk," Rayan finally replied. His voice was hesitant, unsure, and Elon could sense the skepticism in it. "I mean, it sounds too good to be true. You're offering me a chance to come back, but I don't think I can go back to what I was doing before. It's not just the job, it's the whole situation. My life's changed, Elon." "I understand that," Elon said, his voice softening. "But the point of this program is to acknowledge that life does change. No one should have to give up their career because of family responsibilities. This isn't just a job offer, it's an opportunity to reshape how we approach work. You won't have to leave your daughter, Rayan. You'll be able to contribute to SpaceX in the way you were always meant to, but on your terms. You'll work from home, on your schedule, and if you need to step away for Leela, there's no issue. We'll make it work." Rayan's breath caught. "You're serious?" "Yes," Elon replied firmly. "I'm serious. I've been thinking about this a lot. After seeing how brilliant people like you have had to make sacrifices just because traditional work structures don't allow for flexibility, well, that needs to change. I want you to be part of this. You deserve to be working on something bigger than yourself again, and I believe we can make that happen. We've always said that SpaceX is about pushing the limits of what's possible. Well, we need to start with how we treat our people." There was another long silence, and Elon could tell that Rayan was processing everything. He could hear the faint sounds of movement in the background, the sounds of Rayan's life as it was now. the sounds that had replaced the sharp hum of innovation and the thrill of launching rockets into space. "I just don't know if I can believe this," Rayan finally said, his voice wavering. "I've been told so many times that my career's over, that I can't do both. I've been rejected from so many companies because I couldn't commit to the kind of hours they wanted. And the idea of going back to SpaceX, to the work I love, it's so hard to imagine, Elon. I've been away for so long. What if I fail? What if I can't keep up?" Elon felt a pang of sympathy, but also a deep resolve. This was exactly why he had to offer Rayan this chance. People like Rayan had been discarded by the very system that should have been supporting them. They shouldn't have to live in fear of failure because their personal lives made them seem less reliable or less committed. "Rayan," Elon said, his voice steady and encouraging, "I'm not asking you to come back and be the same person you were before. I'm asking you to come back and be part of something new. We're not measuring you by hours worked or how much time you can spend in the office. We're measuring you by the value you bring to the table, your expertise, your creativity, your ability to solve problems. This isn't about making you work more. It's about giving you the space to work the way you need to without sacrificing your family. The point of this program is to show the world that you don't have to be a machine to succeed. You don't have to give up your personal life to contribute to something meaningful. And I believe you can help us build the future, Rayan." There was another pause, and this time, Elon could hear the subtle shift in Rayan's voice. The hesitation was still there, but it was softer now, more hopeful. "I've missed it," Rayan admitted. "I've missed working on the kind of projects that make a difference. I've missed the excitement of being at SpaceX, of knowing we're doing something that no one else has done before. And I've missed the people, the team, the challenges, the feeling of pushing the boundaries. I don't know how it could work with Leela. She needs me so much, Elon. I can't leave her again." "You won't have to leave her," Elon assured him. "The whole point of this is to find a way for you to do both, to be there for Leela and to contribute to the work that matters. You'll have full flexibility. You'll have the support of the team, and we'll make sure everything is in place so you can focus on what really matters. Let me prove to you that it's possible." Rayan took a deep breath, as though weighing the possibilities, feeling the weight of the decision he had made all those months ago, and the possibility of change now before him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Rayan spoke. "All right," he said quietly, "I'll give it a try. But I need to be sure that I can actually do this. I need to know that I won't be abandoning my family for work again." Elon smiled, relief flooding through him. "I promise you, Rayan, this isn't about abandoning anything. It's about integrating your career and your life into something that works for both. You'll be part of this new program, and we'll make sure you have everything you need to succeed. I'll need time to think about the details, but I'll do it," Rayan said, his voice more confident now, though still uncertain. "I think this could be exactly what I need." Elon nodded. "Take all the time you need. When you're ready, we'll start the process. And when you're back, you'll have the chance to lead, to contribute in ways you haven't been able to for far too long." Rayan's voice softened. "Thank you, Elon. Thank you for giving me a chance. I'm just giving you the space to do what you were always meant to do," Elon replied. As the call ended, Elon leaned back in his chair. He felt a sense of purpose that he hadn't felt in a long time. The idea he had come up with wasn't just about bringing Rayan back into the fold. It was about creating a new way of thinking, a new way of working, and this was just the beginning. The next few days passed in a haze of uncertainty for Rayan Patel. After his phone call with Elon Musk, he found himself torn between the excitement of returning to work that he was passionate about and the fear that he would fail once again, unable to juggle the demands of his career and his responsibility as a father. Leela's condition had been improving, but she was still fragile. Rayan's heart ached every time he thought about her. The long nights in the hospital, the months spent in and out of doctors' offices, and the constant worry. Could he really go back to the fast-paced world of SpaceX and still be there for her? Rayan had never imagined that his life would come to this, a place where he was forced to choose between the job he loved and the family he cherished. For so long, his life had revolved around his career. He had been determined to reach the stars, to push the limits of space exploration. But now as a father, those ambitions seemed to clash with the reality of raising a child with a serious heart condition. He spent hours discussing the offer with Priya, his wife. Priya had always been supportive of his career, but she had seen firsthand how his work had consumed him. She had stood by him through the long hours, the missed family dinners, and the constant pressure to perform. But when Leela was born, everything changed. Priya had taken on the role of caretaker, stepping away from her own career as a nurse to care for their daughter full-time. Rayan had always been grateful for Priya's strength, but he could sense the toll it had taken on her as well. One evening, after Leela had fallen asleep, Rayan and Priya sat down at the kitchen table, a quiet tension filling the space between them. The proposal from Elon Musk weighed heavily on Rayan's mind, and he knew that the decision would not be easy. "What do you think?" Rayan asked, his voice low. "Elon wants me to come back, but with a flexible schedule. It sounds perfect, but I don't know if I can handle the pressure again. I've been out of the game for so long. What if I can't keep up? What if I fail?" Priya looked at him for a long moment, her expression soft but firm. She knew the man sitting across from her, the engineer with the boundless passion for space exploration, and she knew what was at stake. "Rayan," Priya said gently, reaching for his hand, "I've watched you struggle with this for so long. You've been torn between two worlds, the work you love and the family you need to take care of. But now Elon is offering you a chance to do both. You won't have to give up your career, but you won't have to leave us either. You don't have to be everything to everyone all at once. You just need to be present for what matters. Leela is our priority, but your dreams matter too. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other anymore." Her words hit him like a wave. Rayan had always been caught in the tension between wanting to be the best engineer he could be and wanting to be the best father to his daughter. He'd spent so much time worrying about doing it all, about making sure everything was perfect, that he hadn't stopped to think about what really mattered. The answer was simple. He wanted both. He didn't want to let go of his passion, but he didn't want to miss out on his daughter's life either. "I'm scared, Priya," Rayan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if I'm not good enough anymore? What if I can't handle the pressure? What if I mess it all up?" Priya squeezed his hand, her eyes filled with understanding. "You're not alone, Rayan. I'm here. We're in this together, and whatever happens, we'll figure it out. You're still the same brilliant engineer you were before. You haven't lost that. And if anyone can make it work, it's you." Rayan looked at his wife, her unwavering support giving him the strength he needed. He realized then that this wasn't just about him. It was about their family, about finding a way to make it all work. He didn't have to choose between his career and his family. With the right balance, he could have both. The decision wasn't easy, but it was clear. Rayan reached for his phone and dialed Elon's number. His hands trembled slightly as he waited for the call to connect. He had made up his mind. He was going to take the leap. "Elon," Rayan said when the call was answered, "It's Rayan. I've thought about your offer, and after talking it over with Priya, I'm ready. I'll come back to SpaceX." Elon's voice was filled with warmth and excitement. "Rayan, that's great news. I knew you'd see the value in this. We're going to make this work. For you, for your family, and for the company. We'll set up everything on your terms. This is about you doing what you're best at, without any of the pressures that kept you away before." Rayan smiled, a feeling of relief flooding over him. It wasn't just about getting back to work. It was about reclaiming the balance he had lost. He was ready to dive back into the world of rocket science and innovation, but this time, on his own terms. He could be the father Leela needed, and he could contribute to the future of space exploration. He could do both. "I'll be ready," Rayan said, his voice filled with quiet confidence. "Let's do this." After the call ended, Rayan sat back in his chair and looked out the window. For the first time in a long time, he felt at peace. The uncertainty had been replaced by a sense of purpose. He had made the decision that would change everything. It was time to take the next step. The next day, Rayan walked into his home office, which had been collecting dust over the past few years. He powered up his old laptop, opening the design files he had once worked on with so much passion. As he began to review the documents, a sense of excitement bubbled up inside him. This was where he belonged. This was where his heart was. Rayan wasn't just going back to his career. He was moving forward into a future where his personal life and his professional dreams could coexist. It wouldn't be easy, but with the support of Priya and the flexibility Elon had promised, he felt ready. He had been given a second chance, not just at his job, but at his dreams. Rayan smiled as he looked at the screen in front of him. The future was waiting, and for the first time in years, he could see it clearly. He wasn't just designing rockets anymore. He was designing a new way of living, one that allowed him to balance his ambitions with his family's needs. And with that, Rayan Patel was ready to launch his next great mission. The morning after Rayan's decision felt different. It wasn't the usual mix of dread and uncertainty that had consumed him over the past few years. Today, there was a quiet sense of excitement, a feeling that he was finally taking control of his life again. After all the challenges, the hospital visits, the missed opportunities, this moment felt like the first step toward reclaiming the balance he had lost. Rayan sat at his desk, which now felt like a distant memory of his former life. The clutter of old design sketches, engineering journals, and rocket models from his time at SpaceX sat untouched, collecting dust in the corner. He powered up his old laptop, the familiar hum of the machine a comforting sound. The file that opened on the screen was filled with designs for the propulsion systems that had once earned him praise. For a moment, he just stared at the pages, the weight of the past few years pressing down on him. He had missed this, the challenge, the excitement of solving complex problems, the thrill of making something that could change the world. But now there was something different in the air. This wasn't just about going back to the way things had been. This was about creating something new, something that worked for him, his family, and SpaceX. The phone rang. It was Elon Musk. "Rayan," Elon's voice was warm, full of enthusiasm. "I'm glad you're on board. We've set up everything for you. Remote work, flexible hours. You're part of the team again, but this time, it's different. You'll have everything you need to succeed." Rayan smiled, hearing the sincerity in Elon's voice. It wasn't just an empty promise, it was a commitment. SpaceX was changing the way it thought about work, and Rayan was at the center of it. "We've got you covered," Elon continued. "We'll make sure you have all the tools you need. A full setup at home, remote access to everything. No pressure on hours. Just focus on the work. We trust you." Rayan could hear the quiet confidence in Elon's words, and for the first time in years, he felt like he was being trusted again. Not just as a father trying to make ends meet, but as the engineer he had always been. This was his second chance. Elon went on to explain the specifics, the hardware and software he would need for remote access, the project files waiting for him, and a schedule that would allow him to work when it was best for him and his family. There would be no more 12-hour office days or weekends spent away from Leela. The job would still be demanding, but it would be on Rayan's terms. After the call ended, Rayan looked around his home office again. The space felt different now, filled with the potential for both work and family. His desk, once a symbol of his former life, was now a place where he could continue his passion while being present for his daughter. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges in finding the balance, but he was ready for them. Over the next few days, SpaceX set up everything Rayan needed. A team of technicians arrived at his home, transforming his office into a remote engineering station complete with high-powered computers, secure communication lines, and even a 3D printer for prototyping. It was everything he had hoped for and more. He was no longer just working from home. He was working from a fully equipped, cutting-edge space that allowed him to do his best work without compromise. Rayan's first project was one he had always wanted to tackle, a redesign of the rocket cooling system that he had once worked on. Elon had given him the freedom to make improvements, knowing that Rayan's mind was capable of seeing solutions others couldn't. It was the perfect project to ease him back into the fold. As Rayan opened the files, he felt a sense of excitement rush over him. He was back where he belonged, doing the work that had once filled him with pride. But there was a catch. Leela. She still needed constant care. And while Rayan now had the flexibility to manage his time, he couldn't forget that his daughter's health was still fragile. As much as he wanted to dive into his work, his family had to come first. One afternoon, as Rayan was deep in thought, Leela toddled into his office, a stuffed rocket ship clutched in her arms. Her bright eyes sparkled with the excitement of seeing her dad so focused, her small face lighting up when she saw him working on something she recognized. "Daddy, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice full of wonder. Rayan smiled, his heart swelling. "I'm building rockets, Leela," he said, his voice filled with affection. "Just like the ones I used to work on. Want to see?" Leela nodded enthusiastically, climbing up onto his lap. Rayan showed her the designs, explaining in simple terms how the cooling systems worked, how they kept the rockets from overheating. Leela was fascinated, asking questions that made Rayan pause and think differently about the designs. "Like my rocket?" she asked, holding up her stuffed toy, which had a little red button on the side. "Exactly," Rayan replied, laughing. "Just like your rocket." In that moment, Rayan realized that this was why he had taken this leap. Not just for himself, but for moments like this. For the chance to be with Leela, to watch her grow, and to help her understand the wonders of the world in his own way. He didn't have to be absent from her life to achieve his dreams. He could be both the engineer and the father, and he would figure out how to make it work. A few weeks into his new role, Rayan felt the shift. He was working on the rocket systems he loved, collaborating with the SpaceX team remotely. He attended virtual meetings where his input was respected and valued. There were still moments when he had to step away to care for Leela, but the team was understanding, and his work continued to progress at a pace that suited his new life. There were, of course, challenges. Sometimes there were technical issues with remote access, or times when a meeting had to be rescheduled. But overall, the flexibility allowed Rayan to do something he hadn't thought possible, to fully immerse himself in his work while also being there for his daughter. He had found the balance. Leela's condition was improving too. The surgeries had been successful, and though there were still regular checkups and treatments, she was getting stronger. Rayan no longer had to miss key moments in her life. He was there for her when she needed him most, and he was there for SpaceX, contributing in ways he hadn't been able to for years. One afternoon, Elon called Rayan to check in on his progress. "How's it going?" Elon asked. "How's the cooling system design coming along?" "It's coming along great," Rayan replied, his voice filled with pride. "I've made some significant improvements. We should be able to implement it in the next few months." "That's fantastic," Elon said. "I knew you'd be able to do it, and I'm glad this flexible program is working for you. You're making a real difference, Rayan." Rayan smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning. His life had changed, but in the best possible way. He was able to do the work he loved while being the father Leela needed. He was part of the future, not just in space exploration, but in the future of work itself. As the days passed, Rayan became more confident. The world was shifting around him, and he was part of that change. He had taken the leap, and now he was flying higher than ever before. It had been several months since Rayan's return to SpaceX under the new flexible work program, and the changes in his life were palpable. The feeling of being part of something bigger, not just in terms of engineering, but in terms of a new way of working, had reignited a spark inside him. Every day he woke up with purpose, balancing the challenges of his work with the joys of being present for his family. It wasn't perfect. There were still long hours of focus, late-night calculations, and the occasional urgent hospital visit for Leela. But there was a balance now, one that he had long thought impossible. Rayan's work on the cooling system redesign for SpaceX's next-generation rockets was progressing faster than anyone had expected. His team, though virtual and spread across different locations, had been collaborating seamlessly. The remote systems that SpaceX had implemented were top-notch, allowing for real-time collaboration despite different schedules. And Rayan, with his wealth of experience, was able to guide his team through complex problems with ease. It was a rare feeling of satisfaction. The work he was doing was as groundbreaking as ever, but it didn't come at the expense of his family. He could attend virtual meetings while Leela napped, work on prototypes while she played in the next room, and still be there for her when she needed him. But the real breakthrough came when Rayan's design passed its first series of tests. The cooling system he had been refining for months exceeded all expectations. It wasn't just an improvement, it was a leap forward. The new design increased efficiency by 22%, and it could be manufactured using existing materials. It was the kind of innovation that SpaceX thrived on, the kind of breakthrough that would make a real difference in future launches. And it was Rayan's work. Elon Musk was the first to congratulate him. "I've been keeping an eye on the progress," Elon said during one of their video calls. "This is incredible, Rayan. The new system is exactly what we need to push us forward. You've done it. And the team too. I'm impressed by how quickly everything has come together." Rayan smiled, but there was a hint of disbelief in his voice. "It's been a team effort. Everyone's contributed. I couldn't have done it without them." "That's exactly what I want to hear," Elon replied, his voice warm. "This isn't just about individual brilliance anymore. It's about collaboration, and it's about getting the best out of everyone, regardless of the circumstances. You've shown that it's possible to work in a way that benefits both the individual and the team. This is what the future looks like." Rayan's heart swelled with pride. He had always believed in the power of collaboration, but now, working in this flexible framework, it felt like something even greater. It wasn't just a new approach for him. It was a blueprint for how things could be done differently across the industry. He could see the larger picture now, and the possibilities felt endless. This wasn't just about solving problems in space technology. This was about solving problems in how work could be structured in general. The success of the cooling system was just the beginning. Over the following months, Rayan's new approach began to take shape across SpaceX. The flexibility program was not just a success for Rayan, it became a model for others. Engineers who had once left the company for similar reasons, citing family obligations or personal health issues, began to return. Some were former employees, like Rayan, who had been sidelined by the traditional work structure. Others were new hires, brought on specifically for their talent and their ability to thrive in a more flexible work environment. The results were staggering. The new team had already delivered breakthroughs that would have otherwise taken years to achieve. Rayan continued to balance his work with his family life, taking Leela to her doctor's appointments when necessary and working on his projects at night or during quiet moments when Priya was home. He was able to watch Leela grow, to be there for her milestones, and to explain the wonders of space exploration as she played with her stuffed rocket ships. One afternoon, as Rayan sat in his home office reviewing the latest simulations for the cooling system, Leela came into the room looking up at him with wide eyes. "Daddy," she said, her voice filled with excitement, "is that the rocket you made?" Rayan looked down at the screen, where the latest prototype design was displayed. "Yes, Leela," he replied with a smile. "That's one of the rockets I helped design." Leela climbed onto his lap, her small hand reaching out to point at the screen. "I want to help, Daddy," she said seriously. "I want to make rockets too." Rayan laughed, his heart full. "You can, Leela. You can do anything you want. But for now, how about you help me with this one? What do you think we should change?" Leela looked at the screen, her little finger tracing the curves of the design. "I think it should be red. Rockets should be red." Rayan smiled and jotted down her suggestion. "A red rocket it is." Moments like these, simple, sweet, and filled with wonder, reminded Rayan why he had made this choice. He was getting the best of both worlds, the thrill of innovation, the joy of family, and the knowledge that he was part of something bigger. He could be an engineer and a father, and he didn't have to sacrifice one for the other. The impact of Rayan's return to SpaceX didn't go unnoticed by others in the industry. As more companies began to take notice of the success of the flexible work program, they started to ask the same question. Could this model work for them too? Elon Musk, with his characteristic boldness, began to speak about the program publicly, advocating for more flexible work arrangements across industries, especially in fields that demanded high levels of expertise. The ripple effect was already being felt. The idea of flexibility, of creating work environments that didn't just value hours spent at a desk, but valued the quality of work and the well-being of the person behind the desk, was slowly starting to take root. It was the kind of change that could transform not just SpaceX, but the entire workforce landscape. For Rayan, this was more than just a return to his career. It was a revolution in how he worked, how he could be the kind of father he wanted to be, and how SpaceX could lead the charge for a new era of talent development, one that recognized the complexities of human life without compromising professional goals. And in the quiet moments with Leela, as they sat together watching rockets soar into the sky, Rayan realized that this was the future he had always wanted. one where ambition, love, and family could all coexist. Rayan Patel stood at the front of the conference room, a room filled with engineers, designers, and executives at SpaceX. He was not the same man who had walked away from this company 3 years ago. He wasn't the same man who had been delivering fast food, trying to keep his family afloat while struggling with the idea that his career might be over. The Rayan standing in front of them now was a different version of himself, one who had found the balance between his family and his work, one who had returned to the cutting edge of innovation with a new sense of purpose. "All right, team," Rayan said with a smile, glancing at the screen behind him. On it was the latest data on the cooling system design. The improvements he had made were now a critical part of the upcoming Mars mission. "We've made some amazing progress, and I'm excited to share the next steps. The system's performing better than we could have imagined, and this new design could make a huge difference for the next generation of rockets." His team nodded, their eyes glued to the screen as Rayan walked them through the details of the design. There was a palpable energy in the room, the kind of energy that came from knowing you were working on something that had the potential to change the world. The kind of energy that comes from collaboration, from working with brilliant minds who, like Rayan, understood that the best solutions don't always come from being confined to rigid schedules and office hours. Since Rayan's return, the flexible work program at SpaceX had expanded. More engineers and scientists who had once left for family reasons or personal issues had returned. Some were new hires, brought in because their talents had been overlooked in a traditional work environment that demanded too much of their time and energy. The flexible model had proven to be not only possible, but sustainable. It was starting to take root as a way of working that valued human potential just as much as productivity. "I'm really proud of what we've accomplished," Rayan said as he finished his presentation. "But we're not done yet. We still have a long way to go, and I'm confident that this team is going to continue to push boundaries." The meeting ended with applause, and as the team filed out of the room, Rayan lingered, his thoughts drifting to how much had changed. He had gone from a fast food worker to leading a team that was solving the most complex engineering problems in space exploration. But beyond the technical success, there was something deeper at play, a shift in how work itself could be done, a shift in how companies could structure their environments to allow for both personal and professional success. As the weeks went by, Rayan's flexible work model began to take on a life of its own. Other industries started to notice SpaceX's success with the program. Engineers, scientists, and even people in other fields who had been sidelined by rigid work structures began to advocate for similar changes. It wasn't just about giving people more time at home or letting them work remotely. It was about recognizing that life doesn't stop just because you have a job to do. People had families, health concerns, and other responsibilities, and the traditional work model simply wasn't set up to accommodate those needs. Elon Musk, never one to shy away from bold moves, began speaking publicly about the program. He didn't just see it as a solution for his own companies, but as a potential revolution in how the global workforce could function. He started sharing the results with the world, not just the productivity numbers or the engineering breakthroughs, but the human side of the story of Rayan Patel, a man who had been forced to choose between his career and his family and had now found a way to do both. "I don't think we've truly begun to scratch the surface of what's possible here," Elon said in an interview. "The potential for talent isn't limited by how many hours you can spend at a desk. Talent is about creativity, innovation, and problem solving. If we can create an environment that respects and values people's lives while still achieving incredible things, why wouldn't we?" The response from the industry was overwhelming. Other tech companies, aerospace firms, and even companies in finance and healthcare began to reach out to SpaceX to learn more about the program. Rayan had been part of a revolution in how people could balance their lives and careers. And while he had been one of the first to embrace this new way of working, he quickly realized that it wasn't just about SpaceX or even about the world of engineering. This was about changing the world of work itself. At home, life had become a little more predictable. Leela, now older, was thriving. Her health had stabilized, and while she still needed regular checkups and care, she was a joyful, curious little girl who loved to ask about rockets, space, and her daddy's work. Rayan found himself spending more time with her, than he ever could have imagined, teaching her about engineering in ways that only a father could. One evening, as they were sitting together at the kitchen table, Leela looked up at her father, a big smile on her face. "Daddy, I want to build rockets like you. Can I do that too?" Rayan's heart swelled with pride. "Of course you can, Leela. You can build anything you want, and when you're ready, I'll be here to teach you." Priya, who had been listening in the background, smiled as she watched the exchange. Rayan had made the right choice. It wasn't just about the work or the career. It was about being there for his family, being the father he always wanted to be, and showing Leela that she could pursue her dreams too. A few months later, SpaceX held a press conference announcing the expansion of their flexible work program. Elon Musk stood at the podium, flanked by Rayan and several other team members who had benefited from the program. "This isn't just a program for SpaceX," Elon said. "This is a new model for how we think about work in general. We're changing the way talent is valued. It's not about hours worked or how many days you're in the office. It's about finding a way to make the work fit into people's lives. Because when that happens, the results are far greater than we could have imagined." Rayan sat in the audience, surrounded by the team who had helped bring this vision to life. He thought about his journey, from SpaceX's star engineer to delivery driver, to returning to the company under a new way of working. He had found the balance he had once thought impossible, and now he was part of something much bigger than himself. This new way of working wasn't just changing SpaceX, it was changing the world, and Rayan Patel was at the center of it all. Months had passed since Rayan Patel had rejoined SpaceX, and the changes he had sparked were more than just technical breakthroughs. They had changed the very fabric of the company and how work was perceived in the tech industry. Rayan had once believed that he would have to choose between his career and his family. But now, through hard work, innovation, and the unwavering support of his wife, Priya, he had proven that you could have both. SpaceX had not only embraced his return, but had also made it the cornerstone of a new approach to talent management. The flexible work program, which had initially started with just a few key engineers, had now expanded to include dozens of team members. Rayan wasn't the only one benefiting from this new model. Engineers, scientists, and innovators from all walks of life were being recruited with the understanding that their personal commitments didn't need to conflict with their professional aspirations. The focus was now on results, on the ideas, the creativity, and the drive of the people, not how many hours they spent chained to a desk. Rayan's work on the cooling system had been the first of many breakthroughs that came from this new approach. The efficiency of the rockets had been improved by over 20%, and the system Rayan and his team had designed was already being implemented in SpaceX's upcoming launches. But it wasn't just the cooling system that was making waves. It was the broader impact of the program itself. SpaceX had become a leader in the tech industry, not just because of its innovation in space travel, but because it was now a model for the future of work. Other companies, both in tech and beyond, had taken notice. The idea of flexible, remote work for people with caregiving responsibilities was spreading like wildfire. More and more industries were adopting this model, realizing that by giving employees the flexibility to balance their lives, they were able to retain top talent and foster an environment of innovation and creativity. Rayan watched as his story inspired others, not just within SpaceX, but throughout the broader engineering community. His journey, from a rising star at SpaceX to a delivery driver, and then back to the company under a new framework, was now the foundation of a larger movement. Engineers who had once left their careers due to family responsibilities were returning, knowing that they didn't have to give up their families to contribute to the future. They could do both. And it wasn't just engineers. The new model was being adopted by designers, scientists, and even healthcare workers who had struggled to fit into the traditional work structure. One afternoon, Elon Musk called Rayan into his office. It had been a while since they had spoken one-on-one, and Rayan wasn't sure what to expect. When he walked into Elon's office, he found Elon smiling, looking more relaxed than usual. "Rayan," Elon said as soon as Rayan sat down, "I just wanted to take a moment to tell you how proud I am of what you've done here. The cooling system is just the beginning. The impact this program is having is far-reaching. I don't think we fully realized just how big of a change we were making." Rayan smiled, but there was a sense of humility in his expression. It's not just me, Elon. It's the entire team. Everyone's been incredible. I couldn't have done this alone. Elon nodded, his eyes glinting with pride. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. You've created something that's bigger than just SpaceX. This is about changing the future of work, and I think we're just getting started. As they continued to talk, Elon shared his vision for the future of the flexible work program. SpaceX had already begun collaborating with other companies, advising them on how to implement similar models in their own work environments. They were creating a coalition of forward-thinking companies that were pushing the boundaries of innovation, not only in technology, but also in how businesses could treat their employees. We've started something here that could change everything, Rayan, Elon said. Not just for us, but for the entire workforce. What we're doing now is laying the foundation for a world where innovation isn't limited by old ideas of what work should look like, and you've played a key part in that. Rayan sat back in his chair, letting Elon's words sink in. He had never imagined that his personal struggles, the battles he had faced balancing his family's needs with his career aspirations, would turn into something that could affect an entire industry. But now it was clear to him, the world was changing, and he had been a part of that change. After their conversation, Rayan returned to his office, his mind buzzing with the possibilities. He sat down at his desk, where his latest project was waiting for him. The work was demanding, but the sense of fulfillment he felt now was unlike anything he had experienced before. He was solving the same complex problems he had always loved, but now he was doing it while being present for his daughter. And in a way, he was building a future that would allow others to do the same. A few weeks later, as part of the continued push to expand the program, Elon announced a public initiative that would share the flexibility model with the world. SpaceX was releasing a detailed report outlining the success of the program, along with practical steps for other companies to adopt the same approach. Rayan was asked to speak at a global tech conference, where he shared his story, not just the technical work he had done, but the personal journey that had led him to this point. It wasn't always easy, Rayan said in his speech, but when I was faced with an impossible choice, to give up my career or be there for my family, I found a way to do both. And I think that's what we all need to realize. We don't have to sacrifice one for the other. Innovation, creativity, and talent don't fit into the old mold of rigid work hours and outdated office structures. We have the power to shape the future of work in a way that honors both the individual and their life responsibilities. And when we do that, we unlock the true potential of what we can achieve together. The crowd erupted in applause, and Rayan's heart swelled with pride. His story had become a symbol of what was possible when people were given the space to grow, both personally and professionally. He had started this journey thinking that he was alone, that his struggle was unique. But now it was clear to him that the path he had taken was one that could be followed by many others. As he walked off the stage, he was met by Priya and Leela, who had come to the conference to support him. Leela ran up to him, her eyes bright with excitement. "Daddy, I want to make rockets too," she said, her voice full of joy. Rayan bent down and scooped her up, holding her close. "And you will, Leela. You'll make rockets and anything else you want. The future is yours." With Priya by his side and Leela in his arms, Rayan knew that this was only the beginning. He had helped to create a world where people could have it all: a fulfilling career, a happy family, and the freedom to shape their own futures. The legacy he had started would continue, and it would change the way the world worked, one person at a time.